The ashram I stayed at was called Mandala Yoga Ashram, and it was in Wales, in mid Wales, and it was set just on the edge of I think it's called Brecon Beacons National Park. So massive green space. All you can see around the ashram is like rolling green hills, greenery, nature. The ashram is a registered charity, and the charity's mission is to uplift humanity through the teachings of yoga, tantra, and advaita. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Advaita. But these are all Indian philosophies and spiritual traditions. The ashram was founded by Swami Nishlanananda, who spent 14 years studying under his Swami Satyananda, in India. And then when he came back from India, he set up the ashram in 1986, and the ashram's been running ever since then. So you can either choose to stay, you can stay at the ashram just to go and visit, which is donation based, or you can go on a organised retreat or an organised course, and they run retreats and courses throughout the year. So I went on a retreat called Exploring Ashram Life. So it's a weekend retreat where you explore ashram life and you practice and study yoga and tantra and advaita. Oh, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. The things that I enjoyed the most about my stay were one, the periods of silence. So throughout the day, there would be periods where you practice silence, which in yoga is called mouna, which is a practice of silence. And there was a practice of silence of mouna in the morning before breakfast, and then in the evening after 9 p.m. Now, I really liked that. It was a nice balance of, periods of silence and introversion, but then also periods of extroversion where you can interact with people, talk, express yourself. Another highlight was being taught by a swami, especially a swami that you feel is that you can feel like you can resonate with. You're quite grounded, down to earth, quite practical. So the other highlight was the library. I loved the library there. It was there was a library just opposite the sadhana hall. So the sadhana hall is where you go to practice. So you have your classes in the sadhana hall, and sadhana is the Sanskrit word for, it basically means a spiritual practice. So in yoga you have a sadhana, a spiritual practice that you are meant to do regularly for a prolonged period of time, and that's your yoga practice, that's your sadhana. So there's a sadhana hall where you do your practice, you do your classes, and then opposite there is a small little library. Oh my god, this library was so good. It's so many good books on yoga, philosophy, science. I could have spent the whole weekend in there. I just love to read. Unfortunately, the library was only open for like 2 hours on the Saturday. If it was open for longer, I probably would have spent most of my time in there. Yeah, so many good books, so many good books. Another thing that was really good about the weekend was there was a variety of different practices so that you could find something that suited you. So for example, I didn't really enjoy the chanting. So I didn't really enjoy what is called mantra yoga, where you chant. So wasn't really enjoying that practice of mantra yoga. But throughout the weekend, there's other practices to experience, and so you end up finding something that you like. And that's, with yoga, there's so many different practices and so many different there's different paths. So for example, if you're somebody who likes to read and question, then jhana, I think it's pronounced jhana yoga or jnana yoga, is probably a path that you'd be drawn towards, which is where it's a path of inquiry and knowledge, and so will involve like study of books, of scriptures, questioning. You use your critical mind as a gateway into exploring yourself and knowing yourself. And yeah, so that can be a really good practice if you are that way inclined. If you have a mind that seeks answers and questions and is quite critical, then jnana yoga or jnana yoga would be a good practice for you. So those were my highlights. But it wasn't a weekend of like peace and zen. And I think people can sometimes get the wrong end of the stick, where if you go to like a yoga retreat for the weekend, and even I sometimes expect it to be like this. You know, when I was leaving my house, I said to my friend, like, oh, I'm going to come back feeling so zen. I mean, I actually did come back feeling so zen, but the weekend wasn't full of zen. The weekend was actually a lot of lows internally, because you're spending a period of time noticing the nature of your mind, and the nature of the mind is inherently negative. So if you spend a prolonged period of time with your mind, you notice it is inherently negative. And so the weekend wasn't full of peace and zen, but I ended up feeling zen afterwards. When I had finished it, when all that, like, I don't know if I can swear on YouTube, all that crap in my mind, I was going to say another word, but all that crap in your mind comes to the surface, and then afterwards you feel a bit lighter and you start to understand yourself better, and you clear away some of the dirt in your mind. So these were a few of my like low lights. I call them low lights, but they're good things. They're what helped me to understand myself better and enjoy the experience more towards the end of the weekend. So one of the lowlights was I noticed myself comparing myself to other people in a bad way. So there was a few people who had clearly gone quite deep in their yoga practice, or deep in the tradition, where they'd been initiated by a guru and given a spiritual name. And there was a lot of people naming teachers, and then the other person would be like, oh yeah, I know that teacher. So when we was doing the introductions, the Swami Satyadaya would be like, oh yeah, I know that teacher, like, oh yeah, I know that teacher. And it just felt like I was like a little bit of like, oh, like, I don't know any of these people. Should I be here? Like, maybe I don't belong here. Like, maybe yoga's not for me. And when I was doing the chanting of mantras, and my heart wasn't in it and I wasn't enjoying it, but I could hear other people around me full, you know, their voice was like full of resonance and heart. And then I was like, oh, maybe yoga's not for me. Maybe I need another tradition. Maybe I need to get into Zen Buddhism, because maybe that's what I need. Maybe I need more practical, you know, just self-doubt, comparisons, thinking that you should be somewhere else rather than where you actually are, thinking the grass is greener on the other side when it's not. The grass is green where you are, or the grass is green where you water it. But anyway, so there was comparisons of making myself feel bad about myself and doubting myself. And then the other thing I noticed in my mind was creating judgments about people based on their accent. And so I've always been quite aware that I don't necessarily speak very good English, like, but a lot of people spoke like really well, and then that makes me, and this is my own insecurity, it makes me feel like I'm not, I don't know, it just, I don't know, it triggers something in me, makes me feel insecure, and makes me want to like withdraw inwards and not really say much. So that was a something that was coming up in my mind that was stopping me from connecting with people and just being myself around people and just fully expressing myself. And so I noticed that happen. It made me feel like I didn't really belong or fit in there. Again, it was my mind it's my mind creating that like me and them, and my mind focusing on things that I think makes us different, rather than realizing that actually those are just perception blinkers in my mind. They're just distortions in my mind. And in getting caught up in that, I'm not actually, I'm not being there with that person in that moment. And I am letting those distortions in my mind stop me from connecting with somebody and just being myself. And so I noticed that a lot on the Saturday. And so then on the Sunday, I made a conscious effort to actually like talk more to people, to get to know people, to put aside those perception blinkers in my mind. And unsurprisingly, Sunday was my favourite day and I felt the most comfortable because I wasn't letting my mind dictate how I acted. I just put aside those silly thoughts, those insecurities, and I just let myself be myself. And unsurprisingly, that was the day that I felt the most comfortable and I enjoyed myself the most and felt most connected to people. Silly, silly mind. Another low light, and this will be my final point, was, and it's probably connected to what I said before about my mind creating this like separation between me and other people based on these perception blinkers in my mind and these insecurities. I felt like I didn't really belong there. I felt like it didn't feel like home. I felt like I didn't really belong. I felt out of place. And then I was like, why do I feel like this in so many different places? Like, why do I feel like I don't fit in so many different places? I thought I'd come here and feel at home and feel, I thought I'd come here, feel at home and feel like I'm where I should be. And then I realised it's, you only feel like that when you put aside those stupid thoughts in your mind that you should be somewhere else or that that you don't fit in. It's my mind that's creating that. And it's all it's an internal problem. There's nothing wrong with where I am. What's wrong is what's in here that is putting these negative filters on my experience. So yeah, again, once I'd realised that, then on the Sunday I enjoyed, like that was my most enjoyable day. I felt most comfortable and just like settled where I was. And yeah, it was interesting. So thank you for listening to this little ramble. If you have any questions about Mandala Yoga Ashram, do leave a comment below. If you want to share anything, please do comment below. I do like to have a two-way conversation rather than me just talking at people. So yeah, if you've got anything you'd like to share, please do share below. And if you'd like to keep updated on my videos, then you can subscribe to my channel. I also do send emails out fairly regularly, like once a week or once a fortnight, where I talk more about like personal experiences and how yoga and yoga philosophy has like helped me through certain things in life and helps me to understand life. So if you want to sign up to those emails, I'll include a link to the description. I'll include a link in the description below where you can sign up to those emails. So yeah, thank you for listening and I hope you have a good rest of the day or evening wherever you are.